All right, so Tata Consumer Products, their latest earnings call. It's a wild one. Second quarter, fiscal year 25, and even big companies like Tata are feeling the heat.
Yeah, the global slowdown is hitting everyone pretty hard, and you layer inflation on top of that, and suddenly consumers are like, whoa, hold on, what am I spending on?
Right, and that shows up in the numbers. Revenue's up on the surface, which sounds good. But then you dig a little deeper, and you see volumes down, especially in some key areas. I mean, look at their India beverages segment, for example.
Yeah, it's a little worrying, isn't it? It seems like maybe people are switching to cheaper brands or maybe cutting back on the tea and coffee altogether.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, when you're watching your wallet, those daily treats are often the first to go.
Totally.
So we've got this interesting contrast where their international business is doing pretty well, UK especially.
Right. The UK loves their tea.
It's true. But India, it's a whole different story.
Yeah, much more complex. And speaking of complex, we should talk about their profits.
Yeah, not exactly a pretty picture.
No, they're down, and a lot of that comes down to the rising costs of their ingredients. I mean, think about it. Tea, salt, all the essentials have gotten a lot more expensive.
It's like trying to bake a cake, but the flour and sugar cost twice as much.
Exactly.
But here's what I found interesting. They're saying they're okay with that. I mean, I was reading what Sunil D'Souza, the CEO, was saying, and he's basically like, we're willing to take a hit on profits to keep our prices competitive.
Bold move.
Right. It's all about protecting their market share, even if it means sacrificing some profit in the short term. So what's the strategy there? What are they thinking?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's definitely a bold move, especially in this economic climate. But I think it speaks to a longer-term vision.
Okay, so they're playing the long game, focusing on building that customer loyalty.
Exactly. They're banking on the idea that people will stick with the brands they know and trust, especially in a market like India, which is still growing so rapidly.
Yeah, it's about building that relationship with the consumer, not just making a quick sale.
Exactly. And by staying competitive on price, even if it hurts a bit now, they're hoping to reap the rewards later on as those consumers stick with them.
Makes you think about their approach to something like Tata Salt, right? I mean, they managed to increase their market share pretty significantly. We're talking a whole 150 basis points, which, for everyone listening, translates to a 1.5% increase.
Wow, that's impressive.
Right. Now I know what you're thinking. Salt, really? But this isn't just any salt. We're talking about a staple in India.
Oh, yeah, it's everywhere. And the fact that Tata has that kind of dominance in that market, that's a big deal.
Huge. And they've done a great job expanding their reach, too. There are more stores across the country.
Yeah, their distribution network is impressive.
It's not just your basic table salt either.
What, they've branched out?
Oh, yeah, they've got rock salt, specialized salts, all sorts. It's a really smart diversification strategy.
Definitely. And it's a good hedge against economic uncertainty. No matter what happens, people still need salt.
It's like they say, can't live without it.
Exactly.
But what about the things you can live without, even if you don't want to? Like that daily coffee. It looks like even Tata Starbucks is facing some headwinds.
Really? I'm surprised. I thought everyone loved their lattes.
So did they, but it looks like even fancy coffee is becoming a luxury that people are cutting back on.
I wonder if it's a blip or a sign of something bigger.
Well, they're reporting slower growth, even negative same-store sales growth this quarter, so it's not looking good.
Yeah, that's not just a temporary dip. There are some bigger economic anxieties at play there.
So we're not just talking about the weather or people suddenly switching to tea.
Nope. Analysts are pointing to broader concerns, food inflation, that kind of thing, hitting urban consumers especially hard.
Makes sense when your grocery bill doubles, that daily cappuccino starts to look less essential.
Yeah, sure.
It's interesting, though, right? Even with all this, Tata's not just, batten down the hatches and waiting for the storm to pass. They seem to be really using this time to try new things. They're making acquisitions. They're not afraid to shake things up a bit.
Yeah, they definitely seem to have that innovator mindset, right? Instead of just riding it out, they're looking for opportunity in the chaos. I think that's something that sets them apart.
So what kind of, innovations are we talking here? Like, are they inventing flying cars or something?
Not quite. But they are really focused on new products, new brands, things that resonate with the modern Indian consumer.
So what does that look like in practice? What are they actually selling?
Well, they're really emphasizing what they call their growth businesses. Things like healthier snacks, exciting new tea flavors, those convenient, ready-to-drink beverages, stuff that caters to, someone with a busy lifestyle wants to be a little healthier, maybe a little adventurous with their taste buds.
It sounds like they have their finger on the pulse. Like they're trying to anticipate what people will want, not just react to what they're buying now.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just about the products themselves either, right? It's about how those products get to the consumer.
Okay, so distribution, what are they doing there?
It's pretty interesting, actually. They're not just sticking with the traditional channels. They're branching out, looking at food service, quick commerce, even online platforms. They want to meet the customer wherever they are, whether it's in the grocery store or browsing on their phone late at night.
Smart. I mean, everyone's got a million options these days, so you've got to be everywhere.
Exactly. And that actually ties back to what we were talking about before, with their focus on market share over short-term profit.
You mean like the long game? How does that play into all this?
Well, think about it. If you're a consumer, right? Tata's keeping their prices competitive. They're always coming out with new and interesting products.
They're making it hard to say no.
Exactly. They're not excluding a huge chunk of the market by focusing on just the premium stuff.
This is they're building that trust, that loyalty, hoping it translates into long-term success.
And it's a smart move in a market like India, where the middle class is growing so rapidly. I mean, there's a huge opportunity there. Now, speaking of capturing a market, we should talk about this whole masstige thing. It's a big part of their strategy.
Prestige. What is that? Is that like a new type of tea?
I wish. No, it's this idea of finding that sweet spot between mass market products and those more, I don't know, aspirational brands. You know, offering a little taste of luxury without the luxury price tag.
Okay, so like attainable luxury.
Exactly. Think about it. Even something like Tata Salt. It's salt, sure, but it's also a brand people trust. It has a reputation for quality.
Right, so it's like they're saying you deserve a little something special even if you're on a budget.
Exactly. It's about understanding the nuances of the market and tailoring your approach accordingly.
Fascinating. It really makes you think about how these business strategies reflect, like bigger cultural trends. So what does this whole prestige thing tell us about the future of the Indian consumer? What's the big takeaway?
Well, I think it highlights a shift, you know. Indian consumers aren't satisfied with just the basics anymore. They want more. They still care about value, of
No,
course.
it doesn't.
Right. But they're also looking for those little indulgences, those things that make them feel like they're moving up in the world, and they're willing to spend a little extra for it.
Yeah, it's like they're saying, we work hard, we deserve a treat, but we're also smart about our money.
Absolutely. And this goes beyond consumer goods, too. You
Right.
know, you see it in travel, fashion, home decor. The Indian consumer is evolving, and brands like Tata are evolving right along with them.
So they get it, they understand what the consumer wants, even as those desires change.
Yeah, and that's a really important lesson for anyone, not just Tata. I mean, if you're a business trying to make it in India, you have to be tuned into what the consumer wants.
It's not enough to just offer a good product anymore. You have to offer a whole experience, something that speaks to their lifestyle and aspirations.
Exactly, and you have to be ready to adapt because those aspirations are constantly evolving. Okay, so we've covered a lot today. Everything from the global economic situation to salt, to Starbucks, even to Prestige.
Mhm.
As we wrap up here, what's the one big takeaway you want our listeners to remember about Tata Consumer Products?
That's a good question. I think if I had to pick one thing, it would be adaptability. That seems to be the common thread here, right?
Absolutely. Tata's success, especially in a market as dynamic as India, hinges on their ability to adapt to, well, everything: the economy, the latest trends, and most importantly, the ever-changing needs of the Indian consumer.
So you can't just keep up, you have to be one step ahead.
Exactly. You have to anticipate what's next. And that's a really important lesson no matter who you are. Whether you're a massive corporation or just trying to navigate your own life, being able to adapt is key.
It's true. Well, you've given us a lot to think about today. A real behind-the-scenes look at Tata Consumer Products, the challenges they're facing, the strategies they're using, and what it all means for the future.
It's been a fascinating conversation, that's for sure. I always learn something new when we do these deep dives.
Me too. And for our listeners, the next time you're at the store, take a moment to look at those Tata products, the tea, the salt, everything. It makes you see them in a whole new light, doesn't it?
It really does. Because behind every brand, there's a story of innovation, of understanding the consumer, of adapting to a constantly changing world.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into Tata Consumer Products. We hope you've enjoyed this exploration of the brand and the ever-evolving landscape of the Indian market. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.